So, what started out as a pretty bad week for William Barr, and as well as Donald Trump, is now getting worse. Now, William Barr, as well as being named in the Ukrainian called not transcript but memo, uh, as being, of course, a contact person for to coordinate a foreign investigation into both Joe Biden as well as CrowdStrike to find Hillary's secret server that's supposedly somewhere in Ukraine. Well, okay, that's bad enough for William Barr. Now it's been revealed that Barr has been pressuring other foreign governments into doing investigations into Donald Trump's opponents. Now, several news outlets have reported that the Attorney General has been urging foreign governments personally to cooperate with an investigation into the origins of the FBI's Russia probe. So now that helps, again, Donald Trump go after his political enemies, basically the U.S. intelligence services, which he believes are part of the deep state apparatus that's going after him and supposedly failing massively. So now Trump himself had apparently asked the Prime Minister of Australia to help Barr out with this investigation to figure out where the Mueller report, where they got the information that was in the Mueller report, and where it came from. So this is a big political investigation, which look isn't a surprise to see that there's political investigations from Republicans because that's look during the Obama administration that's literally all they did is political investigations. Benghazi, Benghazi, Fast and Furious, Benghazi again, 9 different investigations into Democrats, old political investigations. So now here's Donald Trump after Mueller comes out with this report, right? And that report has 10 counts of obstruction of justice. It looks really, really bad. Trump spins it as a win anyway because Mueller says, "Well, look, I can't indict a sitting president thanks to the Justice Department, so I'm just gonna toss the ball over here to Nancy Pelosi." Pelosi, as usual, did nothing, absolutely nothing with the ball that Mueller handed her when it came to the Mueller report. And so what he did, Trump did afterwards, is he said, "Okay, well, you went after me. Now I'm going to go after you. You did a witch hunt on me, so now I'm going to hunt your witches." So that's what this is about. Okay. So again, here's the dossier, right? And that's really what they're looking into. Part like the dossier, anything involved with the Mueller investigation, and somehow that involves the UK as well as Australia. So the context here is there's currently a probe now, headed up by U.S. Attorney John Durham, into the origins of the Russia interference investigation, right? So now the hope is from their side that the investigation will reveal some sort of secret conspiracy, right? That they can show to the base that Trump can, that will prove that President Trump was the ultimate victim of the worst witch hunt, basically to back up his insane rantings on Twitter. Okay, so now Barr launched that investigation earlier this year because now Trump look, Trump is now ordering the Justice Department to investigate political enemies and to basically protect him at all costs. You know who else does that? Fascist regimes. They investigate political enemies and go after them. And they're, look, generally phony investigations, which is what this is. So now the Washington Post, Devlin Barrett, Shane Harris, and Matt Zapotsky reported on Monday that Barr had been personally involved in meeting foreign intelligence officials to try to get their help with this insane probe. Now, this involved actual trips, right? So Barr went to Italy just last week, as well as a previous trip there, and requests to both British and Australian officials. So they're asking, Italians while he's going on these trips for the State Department business, is also pulling these leaders aside and saying, "Hey, you going to work with us to investigate the Mueller investigation?" Now, I would say that's an abuse of authority, but that's just me. Maybe you guys would agree. So now the New York Times' Mark Mazzetti and Katie Benner also reported that Trump recently pushed Australia's prime minister to help Barr with Durham's investigation. Trump did so at Barr's request. they report, and the AP reports that Trump has made other introductory phone calls for Barr in relation to the Durham probe. Now, this is different than the Ukraine thing, where Donald Trump asked the president of Ukraine for political favors. Now, those political favors, of course, would come at, well, okay, let me rephrase that, right? Or properly phrase that. So Trump holds up nearly $400 million in military aid to Ukraine, which, of course, to be used against possible Russian aggression, right? So they need that money. Now, that money wasn't explicitly pointed out in the call, but Trump did remember in the text of the memo, he said this: we've been very, very good to Ukraine, but it hasn't been reciprocal. I'd like to ask you a favor. Go look into CrowdStrike. Go look into the corruption of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Now, look, there is corruption. Now, that is institutional corruption, systemic corruption, which is different than personal corruption, or basically what Trump had done. Trump did personal corruption or attempted to do personal corruption in order to help himself politically. So, again, that's different than systemic corruption, which is getting $50,000 a month to sit on the board of this gas company in Ukraine, which is what Hunter Biden was doing. Now, Hunter Biden had no idea what he was doing there. Why was he there? Because he was a Biden. And so that is systemic corruption, getting all of this money despite knowing nothing but having political connections. So, look, if you want to investigate Hunter Biden on that, and there was an investigation. Now, during that investigation into this gas company, by the way, Joe Biden, another part of his, corruption, right? Systemic corruption, went and asked for the removal of this of a certain prosecutor. But the United States, as well as other countries, an international coalition, also saw that this prosecutor was potentially corrupt, and so also called for the removal of that prosecutor. So was that Biden's personal corruption? Not necessarily. Was it systemic corruption? I don't know. Not necessarily, from what I know. But it does have the appearance of looking shady. So I understand that. But you still cannot ask a foreign country, especially one that you were holding up military aid to or from, to do an investigation on your political rival. Guaranteed, if Joe Biden was not right now leading, and I don't know how the hell he is leading right now, if he was not in the lead against Donald Trump, would Trump have cared about this investigation? I don't think he would have at all. Let's be honest about that. Okay. So there's that, right? So now, back to Attorney General Barr, right? So now, since it is the Attorney General, on the wishes of Donald Trump, who said publicly that we need to investigate, and that we need to investigate this Mueller investigation, right? Well, I'm going to ask the UK and Australia and their roles in the Mueller investigation. Now, the reason that they want to investigate it, as I said before, they essentially want to discredit it, right, and have a win. Now, that hurt Donald Trump politically, the Mueller investigation, as well as the 10 counts of obstruction. That also kind of hurt Donald Trump. So this is a clear case of William Barr essentially using his position as the Attorney General of the United States to become a hatchet man for Donald Trump. A political hatchet man. And that's what this is. That's what this is. And look, for his part, William Barr is really, really happy to do it because, well, that's why he wanted the job in the first place. Again, unprompted, while he was a lawyer in the private sector, William Barr wrote an op-ed about the Mueller report saying that, look, we cannot indict a sitting president. Trump looks at that, especially after the trouble that he had with Jeff Sessions, and Jeff Sessions recusing himself over the Russia investigation. He looked at William Barr and said, yes, that's my guy. I know that guy's going to protect me against everything. And that's exactly what William Barr is doing. According to the Times, Trump's conversations with Zelensky, that is the president of Ukraine, and Morrison of Australia, show the extent to which Mr. Trump views the Attorney General as a crucial partner. The president is using federal law, this is from the Times, federal law enforcement powers to aid his political prospects, settle scores with perceived enemies from the deep state, and show that the Mueller investigation had corrupt, partisan origins, all of which, by the way, will help him going into 2020. If that does not make the case that William Barr himself should be impeached and removed from office, I don't know what does. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.